What's up, everybody? This is CJ, aka The Wolf, coming to you here from the Wolf's Cave. First things first, Nico Iamaleava. Nico Iamaleava. Okay, I finally said it. I finally got it out of the way. Just had to make sure of it. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've done the casting a little bit. I was sick. I had a lot of work in my daily life, and it pretty much drained my energy. So I had a lot to deal with. I really did not have the energy to do last week's, and I really loved wanting to. But yeah, it's been a long week and a half of some of the mess that I had to deal with. But I'm back on. I feel good. I feel great. I had a much better day than I did before and got some stuff out of the way. As you see the picture right below me, yeah, game day in Tuscaloosa, but Vanderbilt's playing Alabama. Yeah, this is an AI version of this picture, and I was playing as Vanderbilt for College Football 26, and I decided to have the AI make the recreation of me as the offensive coordinator. And I don't think I'm that old, but if I were to imagine that way, yeah, I would take it. Not bad, actually. Honestly, not bad. Definitely was one of the best offensive coordinators in that game, and Coach Diego Pavia, which was awesome. So, not gonna get too much into that, but yeah, this past weekend, per usual, was pretty dang good. Just it added a little bit of chaos as if anybody watched Friday's game, Florida State versus Virginia, that presented some chaos. I kind of sensed that matchup was going to be pretty crazy, and I felt like it was a trap game. For anybody that hasn't watched Virginia, they're actually a good team. The 3-1 record, the one loss to NC State, they actually were the better team before NC State kind of climbed their way back and won the shootout. Looking at that game, that was about as similar as it gets. Chandler Morris started out with TCU, ended up transferring a place or two, ended up in North Texas, and actually did pretty well for him before he ended up transferring out again and eventually ended up Virginia. And with North Texas, one of my favorite quarterbacks, Drew Mestamaker, is killing it right now. Undefeated. And look at me going down this list already. I haven't even explained even half of this. I'm already back in. I'm already locked in. I was pretty excited to get back on here and talk about this. Just a lot of stuff happening, but I love football. I love talking ball. I love talking sports. Is always cool. So yeah, but the Florida State Virginia game, it was pretty exciting to watch. It was pretty crazy to watch as well too. What I did not appreciate though was on a Sunday when I was watching the games, and I was like working on some information and stuff for the power rankings in next week's game. My mom ended up texting me a picture of Squirrel White, and apparently he died. And I freaked out. I broke down. I'm like, this can't be true, because on that very last play before the fans stormed the field, Squirrel White was trying to go for the catch, and then when he missed it, the fans just swarmed on the field. And my fear was him getting trampled. Like, that was my biggest fear. And I assumed he was okay. I didn't really see or hear any news of him, in critical condition or anything. But when my mom texted me that, I did. I was freaking out over this, because I'm like, are you kidding me? This has happened? This really just happened? But my instincts told me check socials. check socials. Look for the news. Just look for anything. Nothing saying Squirrel White died. It's a freaking parody X account that had that picture, and I'm like, You got to be kidding me. So I told Mom, hey, it's not real. It's not real. It was just a parody. For all I know, it could have been a joke because the name Squirrel, it's like Squirrel got roadkill or something like that. But it wasn't funny to me because I really thought like that was my image. And I talked with my friend about this. He was telling me hopefully it was okay and everything. He saw the highlights and stuff. But I'm like, in real time when it was happening, that was a little bit of my thought. And then seeing that, it's like, you got to be kidding me. And then checking the socials and news, like, no, okay. So I hate social network to that extent because it's kind of bullshit. So I'm sticking with the official news like ESPN and Fox, just Fox News, not Fox News, but Fox Sports News and all that stuff. Yahoo Sports, they usually give the most relevant information. So if you ever see something like that in the future, check the actual sources, or if you like follow sports apps on your phone or something, just watch for the updates and just don't pay attention to X, don't pay attention to Instagram unless it's Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or I forgot the college football insider's name. Pete Thamel. Yeah, watch for Pete Thamel or any relevant college football insider news. Like, they give the most relevant information. Okay, so moving on. Same night, TCU Arizona State. That was pretty good. Honestly, TCU had a few chances. They had a few chances to equalize this game or even win the game. Unfortunately, they couldn't because, they were turning over the ball too many times, especially in the second half of the game. I think they had like 2 or 3 opportunities to do it too, especially on their last possession. I don't know if it was that exact. Yeah, it was that exact game. I'm thinking special teams. It was just a crazy NFL weekend too. But yeah, special teams on the kickoff. I don't know what the returner was thinking. He should have just let the ball go in the end zone or just kneel it because they could have gotten at the 25-yard line. It was that simple. They could have just worked 75 yards, but instead they had to work like 85-plus yards and then turn the ball over one more time to Arizona State. So that was unfortunate for TCU. They lost their top 25 ranking, but Arizona State finally climbed back into the rankings, which they should have not been kicked out of the rankings in the first place. It's still odd that they did lose to Mississippi State on the road in the first week of the season, but getting kicked out after being in the top 12, it makes no sense. But yeah, good win for Arizona State. Way to get back in. This is going to be a pretty interesting October for them. They got some pretty tough, tricky matchups coming their way. I'll explain that in a moment. Let's go down. Bobby Petrino. His name's right there because I guess by sources, I guess he's the interim head coach, which it's been a decade since he, took over because, the last time he was there as a coach, he was let go because of dating, I think, a college student or a college graduate over in Arkansas, and then also having that motorcycle accident that left him with a neck cast. That was pretty hilarious to this day, man. But unfortunate that Sam Pittman got fired. It was bound to happen, They've lost games that they had opportunities to, and then losing badly to Notre Dame. It was apparent that he was going to be let go. He was on the hot seat for a good while, but I guess that game pretty much just set over the edge. Now he's gone. I thought Sam Pittman was pretty cool. Wherever he lands at, I think the team's going to be fine because he's a good line coach. So if there's a team out there that has a good offensive line that just needs a step up in improvement or just needs to improve the O-line just for the future, Sam Pittman's the guy to go to. Like, he's definitely good for it. But yeah, Arkansas is sitting at 2-3. Bobby Petrino has a second chance. Don't expect Arkansas to be better, but they were competitive, and if Bobby Petrino could get something going to make him competitive, this might be interesting for the SEC. It's already been interesting so far this season, and October's the month to where it's going to get even more interesting. Okay, moving on to BYU Colorado. That game, Colorado could have upset at BYU, but BYU is just such a formidable and gritty team. They weren't going to go down without a fight. Again, they do it. They take them down on the road. They handle their business, and now they're sitting at, I think, 4-0 or so, with roughly 2 games before they host Utah in the illustrious Holy War, which I'm going to be going to in 2 weeks. I cannot wait to get there. But yeah, I'm happy for BYU getting the win. I'm rooting for them to get 2 more wins before I head down there. If this does happen prior to playing Utah, this is going to be the second straight season that BYU goes into the Holy War undefeated against their in-state rival Utah. Louisville and Pitt, didn't watch too much of it, but saw some of it, and the game was good. Pitt kind of had some opportunities, but Louisville was just a tough team. They ended up coming out with that close win. They took care of business. Now they're sitting pretty undefeated going into October, feeling like the team that could be a dark horse in the ACC. Not many have been talking about them because it's like Georgia Tech, Florida State, Miami. They have been the talk of the ACC. But Louisville may have something to say as well too. So I'm interested in seeing how this Louisville team is going to look, unlike last year, which they did have chances before they kind of dropped a little bit. USC Illinois, got to watch the end of that shootout game. Illinois was on their heels a little bit. USC did come out competing, so kudos to them. They're starting to adjust to the Big Ten competition a little bit. But Illinois definitely wanted that bounce back game after getting bludgeoned by Indiana badly. So this definitely was a bounce back game for them. They pulled it off. They were able to walk off with a kick, which was pretty cool. So now Illinois still hanging around the rankings. About 2 weeks later, they host Ohio State. And if we're talking trap game / upset, this could be their opportunity to kind of prove they could be the team to try to get into the playoffs this year. The last time they've upset Ohio State was back in 2007, so it's been almost 2 decades. So this is something Illinois will be marking on their calendar. I don't know if they play this week, but if anything, just don't overlook whatever team they're going to face up against if they do have that matchup this weekend. Tennessee and Mississippi State was definitely a shootout. Mississippi State definitely looked good at the beginning. It looked like they had the chance to end their SEC drought. They haven't won a game like all of last season against an SEC opponent, and they had that chance against ranked Tennessee. And if they could have defeated them, they could have been in the top 25 for sure. But unfortunately, they fell apart. Tennessee was that resilient team. I mean, they've dealt with Georgia a couple of weeks ago or so. So, this was definitely their opportunity to kind of getting themselves back into the SEC title conversation, and defeating Tennessee on the road, overcoming those cowbells going off. Yeah, they pulled it off in overtime. So that was cool to see. So now we're going to see how Tennessee does in October. They do have Alabama, and I feel that game is going to be pretty epic as well too. We already talked about North Texas being undefeated, but Drew Mestemaker, man, he's doing it again. The former walk-on's doing it again. I can't say enough about this kid. He's showing what he's made of, and yeah, if he can last an entire season and keep things rolling, man, I don't know. Might make my way down next year just to watch North Texas and see how Drew does in his second season as a full-time starter someday. So, just keep it going, kid. UM Monroe. Now, nobody knows about UM Monroe. Nobody talks about UM Monroe. But you should be talking about them for at least a good little bit. They're 3-1 for the first time in back-to-back seasons in program history. I dug into their history because you do not hear much success about UM Monroe. But yeah, they are 3-1 for the second straight season. But for the first time in back-to-back seasons, it's a big deal. There's not many names you would know. I'm still trying to figure out who or what this type of roster is, but I got to watch a little bit of them, and they played pretty well, honestly, against Arkansas State. So what a way to start out the Sun Belt with a win against Arkansas State. If they keep this going, they may find themselves in the Sun Belt Championship, honestly. I don't remember if it's going to be their first time, actually, but that would be pretty interesting. Going back to college football 26, I played as App State, and lo and behold, I played UM Monroe the Sun Belt Championship back-to-back seasons. So in some cases, the video game is kind of hinting at some things about certain teams that we come across if we play them. So I don't know. I'm interested in seeing how UM Monroe goes forward. They got some tough matchups in the Sun Belt, but if they're able to go through it, man, I don't know. They got a shot. Okay, going down, LSU Ole Miss. So let's start with that. I don't know how anybody overlooks Ole Miss like that. I really don't. Not saying Ole Miss is an elite team, but they're not a bad team. They're a good team. I mean, heck, they still dominated with their backup QB, who was a former FCS championship. Um, but yeah, a lot of people were like high in LSU and everything. I did not trust LSU's offense. And I know some people kind of mentioned that, there's some flaws with the offensive line, and Cade Durham, the running back, was out for that game. But I'm like, this team has some flaws, and you're picking them over Ole Miss, who's kind of given them a hard time the past few seasons, including one of those seasons to where it took LSU to beat them in overtime. Okay? So Ole Miss is no slouch. They're a good competitive team, and they came out, they actually played better than them. And it just shows Lane Kiffin has done a great job with his team and with the portal, with the development of the players. Ole Miss is definitely a hard out, and LSU's loss definitely left a lot of questions, and I can assume there's a lot of fans out there wanting answers for it, because I've been told about this, I've heard about this about Brian Kelly and his history of coaching. Man, I don't know. I really don't know. LSU, they're still going to be competitive, but there's definitely flaws on offense that needs to be figured out. They're so inconsistent. I know for sure the defense is elite, so that does not change. But yeah, if LSU is going to keep up like this, they're going to be just a playoff. They're going to be a playoff clinching team at best. Not an SEC title / playoff team that can get the top 8 or a bye. They might be on the outside trying to get a home game at this point in the playoffs. Oregon and Penn State. Oregon was the better team, like, throughout. Even before Penn State fought hard in that comeback to force overtime, Oregon was the better team. I didn't know what to expect when they were going into a whiteout Happy Valley environment. That was pretty intense. But Oregon was definitely surgical. They came out, they played pretty well. I mean, the score showed what it was, but it looked like Oregon could have done much more to score on Penn State. But Penn State's defense, I will give them credit for it, with Jim Knowles being on there. It kept them in the game as much as possible just for the offense to kind of fight back. But I have my opinion on this. I posted it on my website, lonewolf1225.com, all lower cases of that name. But Drew Aller, I think they need to utilize Drew Aller in a Josh Allen-ish way. I don't know if Drew Aller has done something like that in the past, like even back in high school. But even for him just being a pocket passer, this guy is big, and he can move. I don't know why he can't utilize his abilities a little bit more, because it makes a huge difference. Like, including that game against Oregon, he actually utilized the Josh Allen-ish type of ability and helped bring this team back to force overtime. I think he needs to use it a little bit more often and just being smart with it. I think he would be unstoppable. Like, he showed that in the playoffs. And I was like, if he can do this next season, he could actually make Penn State's offense pretty damn good, just as long as he's out there. But, Penn State does have questions with the offense a little bit. I don't know. I don't think they're bad, but I think they still need to kind of formulate the plan to be a little bit better. Going back to DC Jim Knowles, he's now 0-2 against Oregon in the regular season. He lost last year with Ohio State against Oregon in that pretty nice matchup in Autzen Stadium. So hopefully Jim Knowles can get things figured out, because if they both run into each other again somehow in the conference championship / playoffs maybe, hopefully he has a game plan for the next time for a bounce back. But it does come down to the offense to ultimately come through. But yeah, Jim Knowles is left 0-2 in the regular season against Oregon. So that's history. That's marked on his resume, going forward. Alabama and Georgia. Okay. So I don't know how anybody felt about this, or even had a thought about this prior to this game even being played. But I have faith Alabama was going to bounce back and beat Georgia. If nobody knows about this and just assume, oh, well, Georgia's the better team, Alabama lost to Florida State, you just keep it in mind. Whatever happened in week 1 is completely different with week 5. It's how you go about this after. Now, I wanted to believe Georgia can beat Alabama this year, but I just didn't see it. in history, if anybody watched Alabama and Georgia in the past, in the recent past, and even in Nick Saban's era, Alabama has not lost many games to Georgia. They have not. It's always been like this. Prior to that matchup, Alabama won 9 out of 10 against Georgia. Georgia had 2 games they could have actually beaten Alabama in before winning the national championship. And I can even say it as well too. They could have won at least a couple of those games. And maybe this game, but I just didn't see it until like late in the game. But Alabama was, to me, they were the better team. Now, they could do better with their offense and maybe with their game management a little bit. It was just ugly. And maybe a little bit of discipline as well, too. But I felt like Alabama was creative. They were prepared. Even being at Georgia, they did not hold anything back. They knew this was the game that they had to get. And I wish I could have talked about this last week about it, because I figured if there was a game that Alabama could just bounce back and look relevant going forward in the SEC, that game would be that one. That would be Georgia. And they came out, they showed up, they played. Even when they had their backs against the wall in the red zone on a few times, they were successful with it. Now, they could have been up a little bit more if Ryan Williams would have just brought in that catch for a touchdown. They could have been up up by 10 for all we know. It was just that good. As for Georgia losing, I would not say anything bad about them. They're still a good team. They're still a tough team. They outran them. I mean, they outran them for over 100 plus, maybe 200 yards. So this kind of tells Alabama is a little bit flawed against the run, but at the same time, Georgia's run game was pretty dang strong. And Gunnar Stockton, man, I mean, even with some of the things that didn't go his way, Gunnar played his butt off. He played a good game, in my opinion. So now I can't question him anymore. He kind of proved to me that he's actually a good quarterback. And Nick Saban praised about him. There was a lot of mentions of positivity amongst this kid. I just had to see it to believe it. And he proved to me with the Tennessee game and now with the Alabama game, this kid can play. And even in tough environments, he's willing to play. He's willing to play under the spotlight, and he will not hesitate with this. So, Georgia should be fine. They still got tough. They still got maybe a couple of tough games ahead of them, but otherwise, I think Georgia's going to be fine. They're probably going to be a SEC title contender. I did not have Georgia for the playoff bracket in my predictions because I didn't know what to think. But, it's a long season. They could still lose 2 games, maybe 3. They can still edge their way into the playoffs. But still, at this point, they look like an SEC title contending team and a playoff team, too. So, yeah, can't wait for the SEC. Can't wait to see what they bring. Okay, I got past this. I actually wanted to talk about something interesting. I love talking scenarios. I love talking long-term of football. I just don't want to talk about, what this team is or what they are after week 1, week 2, week 3 and all that. I'm a long-term guy. I want the scenarios, whether it's monthly, whether it's before the season starts. I want to know what the result is, looking at the schedule, looking at the roster and what they have and how their season's going to potentially go. And that's always been my thing. I've put in so many hours, days, weeks, months to just kind of figure out how these teams are going to play out. It's kind of like my human algorithm, as we would say about this. Sometimes it does work out, other times it does not. But yeah, hold on. Boop. No. Here we go. Okay, so at this point, we're in October now. We've gotten a good 4 to 5 games out of college football, and it's been great so far. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I was expecting week 2, week 3, week 4 to kind of be like that chill weekend where there's not too many good games. It's from 9 a.m. to whatever. Been good games, all of them. Well, to an extent as far as like primetime games and stuff. Not too many blowouts. There's been at least 1 or 2 games on primetime that has just been competitive. throughout, even if it was ugly. The game was close. It was competitive. We got to see some players kind of like show out a little bit. The teams kind of doing their thing, being tough, physical, known for the fact that they have something to play for. And after that first month, we definitely got the sense that they all have something to play for. So looking through this, I have a list of undefeated teams remaining up to October. Same thing with the 1-loss teams and same thing with the 2-loss teams. These are the focus because these are the teams that are still in playoff contention. Now, as far as some of the 2-loss teams, we can even say group of 5. They probably won't be in. But a lot of these games that they faced were non-conference games, okay? So there's some of those teams that are just going into conference play this month. Other teams may have played 1 or 2 conference games. And if they lost both of them, they're probably done. I can understand that. But if you're that 2-loss team, and I'm going to go down the line and just work my way up to undefeated team. If you're a 2-loss team just going into conference play, and you feel like, okay, your team has just gotten a feel, they might be formidable, they might be better than they think, and they're just getting themselves going, they have a shot. They have a shot to surprise people. Just, you cannot lose anymore. At this point, with the 2-loss team going into October, you are definitely walking on eggshells. You have absolutely no margin of error. Now, if you're like a Power 4 team, like the SEC or something, and you got like 3 straight ranked teams in the top 25, top 15 or whatever, you still have a shot to even be in a 3-loss team and potentially maybe get into the college football playoff. But that is a very small margin for it. But again, if you're a 2-loss team, no matter what conference you're in, your margin of error is very minimal to 0. You cannot lose those games. So we can start from there. And I've looked amongst the schedule. I've looked amongst the October schedule. I've looked amongst the teams that may have a shot. There's a very few that may have a shot. But you better hope you have a ranked team on your schedule going forward, because otherwise you better pray there is a ranked team or 2 in November that can help you get that shot. As for the group of 5 team, you can't lose anymore. You got to win the rest. You got to win out the rest, no matter what it takes. You got to win out the rest. And for the committee kind of playing this scenario like college basketball, you can't lose anybody important, honestly. Like, it sucks. It's football. Like, any week could happen to where you could lose players over injury. It's the name of the game. But you got to have your best 11 and a total of 22 that can get you through the rest of your schedule. So if you're that 2-loss team in the group of 5 and you're just getting into conference play, just tell yourself all is for naught. We can still make this through. Some of them I highlighted. Notre Dame is walking on eggshells for sure. They lost 2 games. There's not really much that can work with them. Boise State lost to USF, so they were out of the rankings. NC State had a chance to actually get into the rankings, but they got a lot more to do. They kind of faltered a little bit. USC just lost to Illinois, so they're out of the top 25. They're kind of on the edge at this point. We're not sure what they're going to look like going forward. They got some tough matchups ahead, and I'll explain that in a moment. Kansas, Big 12 teams, plenty of opportunity. It's been kind of like wide open still. I really can't see anybody that's like dominant. Maybe Texas Tech at the best. But if there's a chance, Kansas does, but they got to go to Texas Tech. So they lost to Mizzou on the road. So if it's like that, I'm not so sure they can beat Texas Tech. But anything is possible in the Big 12 at this point. Pitt's kind of on the edge, too. They're a competitive team, but unfortunately they came up short. They also lost to West Virginia earlier as well, too, which that kind of hurt because West Virginia is, I think, off to a 1-3 start, and they lost to Ohio. So that hurt them a whole lot, and that hurt Pitt on that resume as well, too. So there's a huge lot to make up for. And if there's a game out there they can bounce back from, it's Florida State. And they have to go out there and do it, too. Wake Forest, I don't see it happening, but I'm looking at their schedule. Virginia Tech, they got a shot. Oregon State, they also got a shot. They're trying to look for their first win. And then after the bye week, they got SMU, and that's a tough one. But if they can show up and do something like Virginia did, they could actually put themselves in position for a at least getting into the top 25 rankings, maybe. or at least getting into the conversation of being the top 2 in the ACC. But that's a long shot for them, though. But they're a competitive team. I've watched enough of their games to know they could have at least like got away with one of them. I highlighted Iowa as well too. I don't know what to. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect because we all know Iowa has a good defense, but their offense is still in question. I do like Gronowski, but it just doesn't seem like Iowa is any better than what they were. So hopefully after their first few games, they have some sort of plan to implement. But if they can get past Wisconsin and not slip up against them, they do host Penn State. And I already consider that as a trap game because Penn State's coming off their loss against Oregon. Their offense has questions, and going to a routing environment in Kinnick Stadium, it's really hard to get away from there with a win. So if we're to consider a trap game and for Iowa to actually have an opportunity to get into the top 25, that would actually be that game to do it. So that just wait out at least a few weeks and we'll see what happens with it. Auburn. I really want to say Auburn does have hope because they always play Georgia and Alabama. But with how they have looked the past few weeks, outside of Oklahoma, which I honestly thought they should have won that game. Sorry, guys, but it is what it is. I really don't see it happening. They already lost 2 games. They lost to Oklahoma and they lost to A&M in back-to-back weeks. And it's not looking great with Georgia, honestly. Unless they can figure something out in the bye with their offensive line and everything, I think this is pretty much Auburn's in. I'm sorry, guys. Just pray maybe something does happen. NC State, the most competitive ACC team, the toughest out, well, one of the toughest outs in the ACC, suffered 2 losses. Unfortunate for them, but it is what it is with it. You just got to figure something out. They got Notre Dame in a couple of weeks, and it's on the road. But I feel like NC State could come out and play, but if Notre Dame finally has things figured out because CJ Carr played well last week, it's going to be a tough one for NC State to get through. And it looks like they might be done so as well. South Carolina has not looked great. I was not high on them, but everybody hyped them up because of Lenore Sellers. I just wasn't too sure about their offense completely. I thought their defense would have been a little bit better, but they've kind of had some flaws. They did get a win against Kentucky, though, but even then, that's just not enough for me to feel convinced that South Carolina is a legit team. You got to go on the road against LSU in a couple of weeks, and then you got to play Oklahoma and Alabama, even hosting. They got to come out with their A game, and if they can't, and, Lenoris is not 100%, man, they're pretty much done for. They can't do it without him. It's already been proven at this point they can't do it without him. Yeah, let's move on to the one-loss teams. Now, there is a significant amount that may be able to run the table and actually maybe get through their schedule with just one loss and not lose any more. But there's a lot that they have to go through. And there's some of those one-loss teams that has to run into like top 5, top 10, top 25 teams throughout that schedule. And I have a few of them that has like 2 ranked teams they got to play on their schedule or even more. And it's going to be tough. Michigan, I think they can clear out their schedule. But their tough matchup is USC, even Washington at home. This is a national championship rematch from 2 seasons ago. And then they got to go to Michigan State. And Michigan State's been kind of a pain in the ass to them anyway. So we don't know how that's going to play out. I didn't highlight Nebraska. I think they can clear their schedule, but I probably should have highlighted them for one game. Maryland. They're undefeated right now. I have no idea who Maryland is, but they talked a lot of positivity about this Malik Washington guy, and he could be something in the future. And going back to CFP 26, he actually looked damn good in this game. So if it's true, man, in real life, like it has shown a little bit, he might be damn good in real life as well, too. But we'll find out in a couple of weeks or so when they face each other. Texas has Florida. I don't want to say it's a trap game, but it could be a trap game because they're looking at Oklahoma in a couple of weeks. And even if John Mateer is not there, and I really hate saying this too, you should not overlook Florida. They have not looked great. They probably will never be great for a while longer, but they got a legit defense. Texas is going to Florida in that home environment. We don't know what to expect, and we're trying to see if Texas' offense have things figured out. Virginia, I highlighted them because they got Louisville this weekend, and Louisville's trying to make a name for themselves. How Virginia played against Florida State, if they can do the same thing against Louisville, watch out for Virginia, man. They ain't no slouch. They're a good team, man. Again, like I said, Chandler Morris, man, he made this offense pretty legit. And then you got running back Jamari Taylor, man. And then got receiver Cam Ross and a few other guys out there. They ain't bad, man. But the only problem is their defense. They ain't that good. So we'll see how that goes, man. Florida State got to bounce back out of that loss against Virginia. And they got Miami. And we're really about to find out and see if Florida State can bounce back. Because if they don't, they got a lot to bounce back from. Because they don't even have Florida to save them on this one. So if this is the game to where they can bounce back, this has to be the game against Miami. Otherwise, it's going to be a long, long stretch to be even considered like in a playoff spot. There's not much in front of them that will work. So they need a lot to go their way for them to be back in this conversation. Arizona State bounced back against TCU, got back into the top 25. In a couple of weeks, they go to Utah. I'm kind of hoping for that loss because I want to see Utah playing BYU as a one-loss team. I'm rooting hard for a good Holy War game. I want to be there for that one too. But yeah, Arizona State has a lot to work in front of them. We'll see what happens when they go to Salt Lake in a couple of weeks, and then they host Texas Tech, which Texas Tech is trying to be that playoff team. No Texas, no Oklahoma, probably no problem. But there's a lot to prove by both teams when they face each other, and I cannot wait to see how that plays out. Cincinnati, I highlighted them. They're a pretty interesting team. I want to see how they do against Iowa State this weekend. They host them, so this might be an underrated game to kind of look forward to in the morning. Illinois for Ohio State. But we'll see how they do at Purdue. Purdue may be a trap game. I'm not too sure. Illinois got the bounce back against USC, but it's just like, will emotions run high in that matchup before Ohio State? Because it's like you got a lot to look towards, and then you're just coming off a huge win against USC. I'm just saying, man. I don't know what's going to happen with that game. It's just something to keep an eye on. Don't be surprised if it's an upset special. We'll see how that plays. Highlighted USC coming off that loss against Illinois. They got Michigan and they got Notre Dame in back-to-back weeks out of that bye, and it's going to be tough. Like, this is pretty much it for Lincoln Riley. If they do not find a way to beat back-to-back games against those ranked teams, including Nebraska, who's trying to get into the top 25 rank, if they can't figure something out and get themselves going, they are in a lot of trouble. And so is the coach. Utah, really hoping for that win against Arizona State. I want them to be ready for BYU when I go to Utah in a few weeks, man. But yeah, they got Arizona State and BYU in back-to-back matchups. If they can beat Arizona State, there is a possibility they can get into the top 25 prior to playing the Holy War game. And that would be pretty awesome to see. Like I said, I'm rooting for them. Come on, Utah. Come on, Utes. Come on. Moving on. Washington, as I said before. Not as I said before. I'm thinking of Nebraska. No, Washington might have a trap game at Maryland. As I said before about Malik Washington, I'm waiting to see how that plays out. And there might be a headline about that as well, too, with the last name being a part of it, playing against Washington. But Washington has Rutgers and Michigan and Illinois. And looking at that schedule, it ain't pretty. Washington's a good team. They tried their best against Ohio State at home. They just weren't great. But if there was a game to be had, I guess it's the month of October. I really don't know what else to say. They only have one loss. And trying to get out of that schedule with a 3-1 record is pretty dang tough. So, wish you the best, guys. Wish you the best. LSU, they came off that loss against Ole Miss. This is the bye week is important because they really have to figure out that offense. So, I don't know what Cade Durham's injury conditioning is like, but hopefully praying that he gets back in time, like that would be really helpful. But as far as everything else, the offense has to figure some things out. If they can do that, they got South Carolina at home. South Carolina is trying to get them after that last season where they should have had them. But looking at South Carolina's current condition, I will not think about that right now. But then they go to Vanderbilt, and then they host A&M. Honestly, I think those are two tough games. And as long as you have Diego Pavia for Vandy, they're not going to go down without a fight. They're always going to bring some toughness to them. As for A&M, they look better. They definitely look better as a defensive team. Their offense is not bad. It just seems like in any situation, one of those sides has something figured out that's going to help this team get into winning positions. So if LSU can survive just that much, then the A&M LSU game should be exciting. But at this point, Vanderbilt might be a trap game to them. So we'll see. Tennessee should beat Arkansas, but maybe we'll see what Bobby Petrino's Arkansas does look like. Then they go to Alabama. That one should be an epic game to watch. It just seems like I'm trying to put my mind on this. If it's in the middle of October, I'm looking at a lot of games on these schedules that actually might be epic. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is going to be epic. Oh, my God. Okay, we'll talk about this like in the future or maybe in a moment or so. But yeah, I think Tennessee, Alabama is the main focus to watch. I think that's going to be a pretty gritty game to find out who might be in the talks of going to the SEC championship sometime down the road. Mississippi State, I'm only highlighting them because they have one more chance. If they don't beat Texas A&M, they're in a lot of trouble. And oh my God, that Mississippi State coach is going to be hearing it a lot too. I'm not really fond of him. He was an OC for Oklahoma. Did not like him that much. Him being the coach for Mississippi State, I mean, he's an air raid guy. I guess it's an air raid thing, but yeah, I just not too fond of him, honestly. So we'll see what this looks like. They're competitive, but now they're in SEC play and they lost to Tennessee. Can their spirits stay high? I don't know. All right, Boise State highlighted them because of Notre Dame. If they can get past Notre Dame, they are back in the playoff conversation for sure. And they may overtake USF and Memphis for that conversation because of the branding. So I hope Notre Dame beats them because I'm a Nevada fan. And looking at that schedule, New Mexico, 3-1. UNLV, undefeated. Nevada, well, you're going to Nevada. And we got our $1 billion construction going at GSR, which was pretty awesome to hear. They did their, not to get too much into it because Boise should be the focus. Not really. But the Grand Sierra Resort just had their $1 billion construction going underway. I work around that area, and they just did their digging or like ceremony of some sort. Golden shovel, just dig into the ground just to get the construction started. So now they're completely underway. Cannot wait to see what it looks like. I might take some pictures, and I may post them. If anybody watched this video, you might see the progress of it. But I'm going to do my best to get to it. I have a very busy schedule. I have a very busy life. But yeah, I'm bullshitting. But if Boise State goes to Nevada, you better watch out, Broncos. We're gonna ruin it for you. We're gonna ruin your playoff opportunity if none of these three beat you. We're gonna ruin it, even if I have to be there too. Okay, so we move on. Alabama, one of the toughest October schedules they'll ever have. They may have beaten Georgia. They did look good. Doesn't mean they're a dominant team. We have not proven that as a point yet. They got Vanderbilt. Bama's looking for a beatdown on Vanderbilt, but we'll see how they play coming out of the gates in the first two possessions of the game. Then they go to Missouri, and Missouri's looking pretty confident in themselves. Missouri does have a tough schedule coming up at some point too, but they look confident in themselves, and Alabama going over there, Missouri's looking to really upset them and put themselves on the conversation for the SEC title game. And then, as I said before, they host Tennessee. Georgia should looking pretty right now. They look like they're in a good position. I don't think Kentucky and Auburn should be a problem. But then there's Ole Miss. So maybe looking at Auburn it might be a trap game because of the Ole Miss matchup, and they were able to get a big win off of LSU. Georgia just needs to make sure they're locked in going forward, because losing to Alabama, that really has to hurt them a little bit. So now this is something they got to really keep in mind. Penn State, the only schedule I see on there is Iowa. And as I explained before, Kinnick Stadium is a tough place to play in, a tough place to win. That's definitely a trap game. Now getting into the undefeated. There's a lot to look into. There could be at least maybe a quarter to half of these teams that can still be undefeated by November. Just not really too sure how that's going to play out, because Miami, they got Florida State. A lot of people believe Miami's going to beat them, but Florida State has to be angry after losing to Virginia like that. So if there was a game to where we're going to really find out who is legit of who, I think that game's definitely going to see. So I can't wait to watch it this weekend. Oklahoma, I already know about the John Mateer thing. I talked about this. But what are they going to be without him? I guarantee they will beat Texas because John Mateer's on the roster. But now he's out for a while. I really don't know how this is going to be. Oklahoma should be able to get past Kent State, but I can't wait to see Drew DeShields play. Kent State quarterback. He's actually been a good quarterback. Like, Kent State's been looking for one for a good little bit. It's been a while since they've had anything going on offense. And Drew DeShields is actually a difference maker. So I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it just to see what Drew DeShields does. But at the same time, I want to see what this Mike Hawkins offense looks like. And then they got Texas. I don't know what's going to happen. I had a ticket to go to, well, not a ticket, but I had plane tickets to go to the game, and then I backed out of it for whatever reason that might be. That was months before the season started. But now pretty much hindsight view, that was pretty much the reason. But Mateer's hurt. He's not going to be in the Red River Rivalry game. Effing great. I'm going to have to wait till next year to watch him play at the Red River Rivalry. And assuming Arch Manning is there too, which I did assume he will be there next year. So can't wait for next year's epic Red River Rivalry, and I'm going to be there for that for sure. So, then they got South Carolina on the road. That's a tricky game. And then they got Ole Miss. If it's anything possible, Mateer might be back in time for it. Perfect timing. We'll see how that plays. Maryland. Vanderbilt. As I explained before, they got Alabama. We're going to really find out to see if Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia is legit. If they beat Bama, this will be the first time a mid-team in the SEC has beaten Bama in back-to-back seasons since Ole Miss. And I'm talking mid-teams because Ole Miss was mid in the past with Hugh Freeze being the coach. But Bo Wallace and Chad Kelly, back-to-back years, beating Bama. Oh, that was awesome to watch. That was great. Crazy pass. Ole Miss with Chad Kelly on there, the crazy pass touchdown. Oh my God, that was awesome. Okay, just moving on from that. And then Vanderbilt hosts LSU and Missouri. LSU's offense has questions, so Vanderbilt might have optimism coming out of the bye week for this. And then Missouri's feeling good about themselves, but now they might be into tough competition, even though they have an easier road. But that road might get a bit rough since, they're going deep into October. Louisville, as I explained before, it's going to be an interesting matchup with Virginia. We'll find out to see if Louisville could be the team to watch in the ACC as far as being the dark horse. And then they got Miami after the bye week. And it will all depend on how Miami does with Florida State, just to see, okay, what is this matchup going to be like? Ohio State. Illinois is on the schedule. They're going to Illinois. Illinois feels good about themselves after beating USC and staying in the top 25 rankings. And as I said before, if that were the case, this could be the first time Illinois gets a win off of them since 2007. So, can't wait. Can't wait in a couple of weeks to see this matchup. Indiana on the schedule because of Oregon. We're going to find out and see if Indiana is for real. They're in the top 10, feeling good. They got a quarterback. They look like the better team than they were last year. In prime position. And this would be huge for Hoosier fans. This has never happened in their history to where they're in this situation. And Curt Cignetti, man, he might be talked about as one of the best coaches like this early in his FBS career. Like, he has not had a loss. And all he needs is 2 more wins for his Google Me comment to stay face at this point. So, yeah, at this point, this is just that game. I would love to go there, honestly. I would love to go there. Texas A&M have been highlighted because of LSU. I don't think Mississippi State's going to be much of a problem, but we're going to find out to see if A&M looks complete at this point. They got Florida next. And then there's Arkansas. I would consider this as a trap game because Bobby Petrino is back as the interim head coach. So, looking at LSU, this might be a trap game. It all depends on how Arkansas looks in the next few weeks under Bobby. And if Arkansas even does remotely anything that makes me feel convinced, then watch out for that being an upset. Ole Miss, because of Georgia and Oklahoma, but mainly Georgia. We're going to really find out to see if the Squirrel game actually follows through. And I got the Ole Miss Squirrel t-shirt for it. I'm going to wear it. Not saying I'm supporting them. I just love the damn t-shirt. But if they're able somehow to get past Georgia, they're going to be talking a lot more about Ole Miss being a legit SEC team. And I think this might be their first time going to the SEC championship. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to dig through the history a little bit. Iowa State, I only have them marked on it because of Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a tough defense, and they seem physical. Whatever the coach has done with them in the past few seasons, they look good right now. By assuming that they still have the same head coach. I have not really paid attention to their coaching staff, but I'm assuming they still have the coach from last year or so. But yeah, I think Iowa State, Cincinnati, 9 a.m. Iowa State's on the road at Cincinnati. Cincinnati kind of feeling confident in themselves with what they got, including the quarterback who's actually proven himself. Ever since that week 1 game against Nebraska, his passing stats has really taken a step up. So we're going to really find out to see if Brendan Sorsby, let's see how good he is. Missouri, as I kind of mentioned it before, they have a somewhat easy schedule, but as time goes on, it might get tougher. Alabama's going to be a tough one, even being at home. They go to Auburn. We'll find out and see what the Tigers look like then. And then they go to Vanderbilt. And if Vanderbilt somehow beats Alabama and gets this far, they got a tough one to close out their October. And we're going to really find out to see where these two teams are at. Oregon, already explained it about Indiana. But Rutgers could be a trap game. We don't know because if Oregon beats Indiana, they're going to feel good about themselves, and it might work out for them. And it's a young offense, too, no matter what. And going to Rutgers, they're a gritty team with Greg Schiano. I wouldn't overlook that matchup. And then BYU. As I said before about Utah, please, you got to win all your games so then you can be undefeated going into this one against Utah, which I'm hoping they go in with only 1 loss and back into the top 25. So we'll find out. But I have BYU marked because prior to Utah and Iowa State after that too is Arizona. Arizona took a beating, okay? But they don't seem like a bad team. They were just outplayed by a better team. So if BYU gets past West Virginia, they do have Arizona. And Arizona might give them a hard time. And it could be considered a trap game. We don't know how this is going to play out. But yeah, if I were them, I wouldn't overlook Arizona. And no, BYU's not at Utah. They're home against Utah. How do I know this? Because I was at Utah last year for the Holy War. Okay. Okay, so that's everything. That's my scenarios. I feel like some of those teams could still be in it by the time they get to November. But I want to talk real quickly before I get real quickly into the NFL and just close this out. I'm hitting on the hour mark. I'm looking at a lot of these games in like week 3 of October. Holy crap, this might be an epic week. I'm looking at all these matchups like Vanderbilt, LSU, Ole Miss, Georgia, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, South Carolina being an, trap game or something like that if they beat Texas somehow, which I really hope we do. Texas Tech, Arizona State. Like, I'm looking at some of these matchups. USC at Notre Dame, Washington at Michigan. It's kind of crazy to think Alabama at Tennessee. It's kind of crazy to think Penn State at Iowa. It's kind of crazy to think that the third week of October is stacked. It's like A plus of games. And my God, if some of these teams can get this far, or at least like stay within positioning of it, man, this might actually like start closing out some teams that are trying to fight for playoff positioning. And man, this kind of gets me really excited about this. And funny thing, I'm gonna be at Utah for these while these epic schedule matchups are gonna be. I'm kind of hoping the BYU Utah game is a night game. I was told about this by a fellow BYU fan 2 seasons ago. Their night game with BYU is pretty awesome, especially the fourth quarter quick performance or something like that. I got to see it in daylight. Yeah, that should be at night. And then seeing what the Cougar mascot does too, dude. Like, come on. He is legit, man. So, can't wait to get there. Hopefully it's a night game, which is why BYU, Utah, please win out the rest of your games before playing each other. Please? Okay. Going quickly into the NFL, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It has been great so far. Really, really great. I can't say we're starting to find out who's legit or not, because none of the teams have looked particularly legit, but we know the Eagles are NFL Super Bowl champions. So no matter what they do, they're going to find ways to win. The Detroit Lions are starting to figure things out, so they might still be legit. The Rams are looking pretty good. Seahawks are 3-1. They look like a tough team. They look like a good team, but we're going to have to find out to see how they play this weekend against Tampa. Tampa, I felt the same way about them as well, too. They don't go down without a fight, but they have some flaws themselves. Now, I really don't know how this season's going to play out, because outside of the Eagles and the Bills, it's wide open. I don't know who's legit. I really don't. I would have loved if my Niners look like they're legit, but we lost to Jacksonville. And I'm pretty pissed because they decided to start Brock Purdy when I wanted Mac Jones to play his former team. You know, Purdy's coming off of a 2-week injury, and throwing him out there rusty and everything against the turnover forcing Sharks. Yeah. That's what the result we got. Because looking at how that played out, the score was much closer. And if it weren't for those turnovers and that punt return touchdown allowed, which might have been inevitable whether Mac was out there or Purdy was out there, they could have been in a much better situation. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Defense did everything possible to get what they want, but unfortunately, the offense kind of failed with the turnovers, and special teams kind of messed up as well, too. So, you know what? It is what it is. I kind of knew this was going to be a slow start for the 49ers, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go in under 500 before the bye week, but I'm just hoping we don't have any more injuries. I just have a lot of questions with it. And the personnel making the decision on starting Purdy instead of just saving him for Thursday Night Football against the Rams, I'm really questioning him right now. So I don't know. Am I overreacting over this? Yeah. But am I saying it's all over? No. Give me until Thanksgiving to see if I do feel the same way or not. And then I wanted to close it off with Cowboys Packers tying game. Oh my God. Now, it looked like the Packers could have won. It looked like they had them because the Cowboys, they did not look like they were in this. Like, this defense especially, it looked like they were just not in it to play. And it kind of made me think they wanted Jones to pay, Jerry Jones. But then after that, what was it? The extra point block for a 2-point play. Okay, momentum kind of changed. But once it got to the fourth quarter, I told Mom I kind of wish for a tie. I didn't think it'd actually work out because I did not want to see both of them win because it's too entertaining, it's too exciting. But I didn't want either to lose too because it's just too good. Like, whoever loses is going to have the worst of it. Packers losing, it's like, okay, we got Micah, but we're getting nowhere with it. Or the Cowboys lose and everybody wants to put Jerry Jones at the stake at this point. No, don't. He's a good owner. Just let him be the owner, man. I love Jerry Jones, man. He knows what he's doing. But no, that was a pretty entertaining game to watch. But I will say this about the tie. I don't know why people are bitching and complaining about the tie. I'm okay with it because it makes the scenario so chaotic as it gets towards the end of the NFL season. And I love chaos. But it just seems like everybody wants to be efficient with everything. It's like, oh, well, we got to have a winner or a loser, blah, blah, blah. But seeing the tie happen and leaving two teams' fans confused over it, God, dude, come on. To me, that's content. I want to see it. I want to hear it. I want to see people's reactions. I talked with my friend for a good few minutes because he's a longtime Packers fan. And he was telling me some of the situations the Packers were in that they could have won the game, but then things didn't work out because some of the conservativeness and the play calling and the mistakes that was happening, and I can understand that for sure. But it was definitely entertaining to watch. And then at some point I'm going to talk to a couple of my Cowboys friends and see how they felt about that game too. But a tie, to me, is a gentleman's handshake. And with all the hoopla during the offseason with Jerry Jones trading Micah Parsons to the Packers and the Packers suddenly being a Super Bowl contending team because of Micah Parsons, we'll see. But that ending that way, it felt like a transaction complete by both teams. And I was thoroughly entertained by that one. I'm so happy with the result of it. It would have been nice to see how things would have ended for one of the teams losing the game. But to me, a tie, I would love it. But if you guys do not like ties and you want to bitch and complain about it, like, oh, well, there should be ties, there's got to be a winner or a loser, go watch college football. And if anything, the NFL needs to do the same thing. Go watch college football. Take some of their overtime rules and implement it for your own. If one overtime doesn't work, then do 2 overtimes, do 3. I don't fucking care. If not, we're not going to wait 5 hours to find out who wins and then just say, you know, let's end the game with a tie. Just end it with a tie and let the scenario figure itself out by week 18 and then see who's the worst between the Cowboys and the Packers. I don't know. I don't effing know. I'm not in charge of the NFL, but I like ties. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's great. It's perfect because we want chaos. And I would have figured at least some of the fans would want chaos as well too, which we're going to see in college football this month. But everybody's just left confused, unsatisfied, especially Packers fans, because they got a bye week, so they got to deal with 2 weeks of it. But it's a tie. It's a regular season tie. Who cares? Okay? But if you do want change, implement your own overtime rules or do what college football did and do a 2-point conversion competition. Or, in my case, as my opinion, do a kick-off competition as far as get 2 kickers, kicking field goals from whatever distance or the longest distance or the most made and see who wins off of it. It's like soccer, except you're kicking an effing field goal or extra point. I would like to see it, honestly, because now the game is decided by your kickers. And this could actually help them with their career if they're struggling on kicks, just normal. But then at the same time, it can actually hurt them as well, too, because it's a lot of pressure put on them after they already missed some kicks or botched it or got blocked or something. But this would be nice to see. And no, there won't have to be any players involved on the field goal kick except the snapper. Or if you want to do the football holding thing and then just kick it, do that too. But or have the snapper, the holder, and the kicker, and just do all of that for the kickoff. I would like to see that, but that's just my opinion. But otherwise, suck it up and get over it, okay? It's just a tie. Who cares? It's just one game. Now, if you tie 5 times, then there might be questions about it. We've already had special teams greatness and goofness since this season started anyway. So at this point, now special teams are really going to have to be the talk. And if you want to make them a part of the overtime situation, I honestly would say let's do it. Let's make the changes for the overtime rules on the regular season. But otherwise, just shut up, okay? Just shut up. All right. I'm done, but I will make the quick note before I go. I am heading off to California to watch a high school kid named Ryder Lyons play this weekend. Well, not this weekend, but this Friday. He is, I guess, one of the top QBs in the 2026 class, and he just committed to BYU, which I'm going to that game in 2 weeks anyway. So I'm actually going to be out there to kind of scout a little bit and see what this kid is all about before I can, believe that, okay, he looks like a legit QB. And then, once I come back, then I'll talk a little bit about it and just see what that plays for BYU's roster in the future. Because I'm definitely excited about this. So yeah, I can't wait to get down there. But yeah, otherwise, I am done. I am going to do my best to edit this video and then post it on, Spotify, whatever sites I can, post it on, and then just move on with the rest of my week and just prepare for, prepare for Friday. But yeah, hope y'all have a great time, great day, night, evening, time, whatever, or wherever you're at. Make sure to check out my website, lonewolf1225.com, all lowercases, and just check out some of my content. But yeah, peace out, guys.